Hello, Revolution Pro Wrestling viewers, and welcome to another special rundown of our upcoming card. We are returning to Southampton for the first time in 2023, and as always, I am joined by Andy Quilden. Andy, how you doing?
I'm doing great, thanks. Looking forward to getting back to some more wrestling action. We had 1 week off this time, but it's from this point on, it's go, go, go. It's exciting 2023, and nothing tells you that more than this card that we've got lined up for you this Sunday in Southampton.
Yeah, we've got some real treats in line for the RevPro fans, so let's just jump into it. We return to Southampton, and you've announced one hell of a card. I'm just going to jump straight in with Dan Maloney versus Luke Jacobs. So we've seen this match before. I can recall seeing it in Sheffield, and it was about as hard-hitting as it gets. And this is going to be a real treat for the Southampton fans.
Yeah, absolutely. And this is one which it's been boiling for a long time. The two guys don't like each other. You can date its roots back to Southampton actually as well. If you look back through the cards and you know, really the guys don't like each other. We signed the match for Sheffield, and Luke Jacobs picked up the win on that occasion, and Dan Maloney obviously disputed that win, and the pair just continued throwing bombs straight after, and thus we've really seen these two, this rivalry, if you will, come to light. And you know, it involved Luke Jacobs losing the Cruiserweight Championship at Uprising, you know, where he invited Dan Maloney into that matchup after initially telling him to get you-know-what. And as a result, Luke Jacobs was able to again pin Dan Maloney, eliminating him from the contest, but Dan had the last laugh, coming back and spearing him. And again, you saw them go at it at our last event 2 weeks ago at the 229, when Dan Maloney said after his victory over Chris Bronson, Dan Maloney said, "I don't want to wait till Southampton. I want Luke Jacobs right now." And then you saw what happened. The pair, you know, you didn't have to ask Luke Jacobs twice, and the pair just went at it again.
Had to be physically restrained, yeah.
Yeah, they had to be physically restrained. And unfortunately for Luke Jacobs, Dan Maloney was able to con the officials and contenders into thinking that he was done, you know, hands up, I'm done, whilst Luke Jacobs was still being held back because such is his disdain for Dan Maloney, but that left him open for one hell of a gore, which some say then cost him that contest later in the evening against Connor Mills. Of course, Luke Jacobs fought through the pain, ribs taped up, but he was going up against a very dangerous Connor Mills, who picked him apart with those body shots. So yeah, Luke Jacobs absolutely going to want to get a measure of revenge on Dan Maloney. And look, this is one of those rivalries which has raged on for quite some time now. And I think both men will be looking to draw a line under it, move on, and really attack 2023. But how can you draw a line under it unless there's a definitive conclusion? So we hope this Sunday will create that, or will it just make a combustible situation set on fire? Who knows? But it's going to be great to watch it and find out.
Well, I'm sure the contenders and officials will be hoping for a definitive end as well. We've got quite a heavy Legion presence on this card. I can see two matches here involving members of the Legion. So let's start with Yota Tsuji taking on the man that's on everyone's lips, one of the most exciting wrestlers to emerge last year. It's Yota Tsuji versus Leon Slater.
Well, absolutely. Leon Slater, like you say, is the wrestler everyone's talking about. You know, the can't miss success story of British professional wrestling, the next big star, etc., etc. You run out of words to describe him. The one thing that Leon Slater needs to do is keep his head on his shoulders, and also he needs to continue to compete against the best competitors in the world. And this Sunday is his opportunity to continue to do just that when he goes one-on-one with Yota Tsuji, who, let's not forget, let's not sell Yota Tsuji short. He's a guy who's tipped for huge things. Of course, contracted to New Japan Pro Wrestling. You know, graduated from the New Japan Pro Wrestling Dojo, is currently on an excursion here with us in Revolution Pro Wrestling. He's furthered his learning over in Mexico with CMLL. Yota Tsuji is a diverse professional wrestler. We saw him last time out against Gabriel Kidd throw in some of that Lucha Libre influence. We know he was very influenced by that when he came to the UK, and now he's had that first-hand experience of it. He's a completely different proposition to anyone that Leon Slater's faced before. And this is where you learn. This is where you take those next steps in your professional wrestling journey. And dare I say, matches like this will keep Leon Slater humble. and it's really going to be a key part in his development and also a key part in Yota Tsuji's as well. So it's going to be a fantastic professional wrestling match against two of the very best prospects in the world right now, and that's not an understatement. And I've said it time and time again, but I believe right now we've got the strongest top to bottom roster that we've ever had. And I think we'll be looking back at days like this Sunday in Southampton, having taken them for granted, because we are going to get to witness first time clashes, best wrestlers in the world, future superstars. And one day Leon Slater and Yota Tsuji will compete on a huge, huge stage. I can guarantee it, providing, their contractual paths take them to the same places. But they've got the ability to, compete on that huge, huge stage. And then we'll be looking back and asking, where was the first time they met each other? At Revolution Pro Wrestling. We are privileged to be living the time that we're living right now. And I, for one, can't wait for this contest.
Yes, and if you want to be able to say you saw it first, the new home of tickets for all Revolution Pro Wrestling shows is revolutionprowrestling.com. If you haven't got a ticket for this Sunday, what are you waiting for? As Andy just said, that is a first-time clash that in a few years people will be saying, oh, why didn't anyone do it sooner? Well, RevPro did it sooner. There's your answer. And you said Leon's going to need eyes in the back of his head because of that Legion presence. Also on the card, we have the combination of Lord Gideon Grey and Lucian Phillips taking on LYKOS Gym.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to say the least, because LYKOS Gym seem to have been taking over a new leaf in 2023, not breaking the rules, no more shenanigans, it seems. I have been very, very vocal when talking about LYKOS Gym and their shenanigans and the fact that they let themselves down time and time again in the past and do themselves a disservice. And we really saw when Kid LYKOS went one-on-one with Robbie X at the 229, him continuing because look, we need to go back to their tag team contest with the Greedy Souls, the undisputed British tag team champions, a contest that Gideon Grey was firmly against because he believed LYKOS Gym hadn't earned that championship opportunity. He then believed Kid LYKOS hadn't earned the Cruiserweight championship opportunity as well. So there is some bad blood between Gideon Grey and the members of LYKOS Gym. But Kid LYKOS and Kid LYKOS 2, they lost that contest against the Greedy Souls despite faring very well, due to the fact they went back to the shenanigans. They were doing well with their professional wrestling, and they went back to that elastic band, that bag of tricks, and it cost them big style. And ironically, it was Kid LYKOS's refusal to rely on shenanigans against Robbie X that may well have cost him that Cruiserweight Championship just 2 weeks ago at the 229, when Gideon Grey passed his cane to Kid LYKOS and said, here, use this, my friend, anyone but Robbie X. And Kid LYKOS refused that. He refused that cane, and Gideon Grey's taken that very personally. So what do you do when you take something like that personally? You get your big mate to come and try and bully them. So that's what's going to happen, and it's going to be an intriguing match in the sense of, the size of Lucian Phillips against the two members of LYKOS Gym. Gideon Grey stacks up a little better against a pair of them. But Gideon Grey's nasty, he's vindictive, his in-ring style is somewhat of a human torture device. He's a fine technician in the ring. He's someone not to be taken lightly. And Lucian Phillips, that smash mouth, southpaw, he's so dangerous. And I believe that Gideon Grey and Lucian Phillips could actually complement each other perfectly as a tag team if Gideon Grey is to focus in one direction. But he's got his fingers in all the pies, be it Legion or United Empire, being in the UK or Japan. But one thing's for sure, I think that the people of Southampton know what Gideon Grey is all about, and I don't expect him to receive a warm welcome at all, and I think LYKOS Gym could well be in the unfamiliar position of being firm fan favourites. And when you fight with the fans on your side, you fight with momentum on your side, and that could be the difference maker.
Certainly, the fans are going to be loud for that one way or another. We now have two matches that serve as ringing endorsements for the London and Portsmouth schools of wrestling. Let's kick off, first of all, with Cameron KHAI having, the phrase, the biggest match of his career so far gets thrown around so much. But this really is true for Cameron KHAI because he's taking on the former longest reigning undisputed British Cruiserweight champion And someone who said that he is going to make this year as successful as 2022, it's Michael Oku.
Yeah, again, this one is I won't say it's a complex match. It's probably the easiest match to look at in terms of it's going to be a straight up professional wrestling match. We're not going to look for Michael Oku to initiate any dirty tactics. Cameron KHAI is certainly not that kind of individual. He hasn't been around the bad influences like Gideon Gray. Fortunately for him, when he was breaking through the Portsmouth School of Wrestling, Gideon Gray was in Japan, so he's not had too many interactions with the likes of Gideon, etc. I'm sure Gideon, when he sees this match on Sunday, Gideon will be making all the phone calls. But Cameron KHAI is a very real deal. He's a great professional wrestler. He's one of the most exciting young prospects. 16, 17 years old. Been training for a year, maybe less than that. And when you see his level of development already, he's going to be someone who's very, very special, to say the least. And this is an interesting position for Michael Oku to be in as well. This is a position that Michael Oku was in when he started his career in Revolution Pro Wrestling. He was the one who, he didn't want to take it easy. He didn't want to ease in against lesser names. He wanted to go up against the very best to try and prove his worth. And whilst he wasn't always successful, he wasn't successful full stop in that in that journey in terms of winning professional wrestling matches. He learned so much from each and every one of those contests, and he grew and grew and grew and evolved until he became what he is today. And that's a decorated professional wrestler and one of the very best to ply his trade in the country right now, and one of the names on the lips of wrestling fans around the globe. Cameron KHAI is going to be looking at this match, and he's going to be struggling to not be overawed by the occasion. But he's got a head on his shoulders, and a smart head on his shoulders at that, and I think that, this is going to be a key match in his development. How will Michael Oku respond to now be in the position of favorite instead of underdog? Even at this stage in Michael Oku's career right now, when Michael Oku wrestles, he's often the underdog, so, and that's because he's wrestling against some of the very best, but, he also is competing. He doesn't. Weight categories mean nothing to him. Experience means nothing to him. He will fight against anyone, and on any given day, at any time. And Cameron KHAI is no different, but he's mentally gonna have to adjust himself to the challenge ahead of Cameron KHAI, because I'm sure he's already got one mind ahead, looking towards York Hall, Bethnal Green, March 26th, when he goes one-on-one with Zack Sabre Jr. So right now he needs to focus on Cameron KHAI. And if he doesn't focus on Cameron KHAI, it could be a costly night for him. So like I say, whichever way you look at this contest, it's intriguing. And to me, it's another one. Look, I'm going to say it over and over again. I'm the promoter. It's my job, but I can't wait.
So that's going to serve as one ringing endorsement for the schools. And another one, we have two alumni going against each other. It's Will Caven, ruthless Will Caven, going on against JJ Gale. And this will be JJ's first match officially as a singles competitor since splitting amicably, for possibly the first time it's happened in professional wrestling. He amicably split up with his partner, Callum Newman.
Yeah, and it's a big match for JJ Gale, isn't it? Because him and Callum, they both discussed it. They want to try and go as singles competitors. Look, I believe their tag team was just starting to find legs, and I feel like they were, a few matches away starting to pick up big wins in that tag team division. But look, let's call it for what it is. They were two wrestlers. They were put together by Will Ospreay, who was Callum Newman's trainer and mentor. And Will Ospreay had competed against both in singles competitions in the empty arena, the dark days of Revolution Pro Wrestling, and the world in general, not exclusive to Revolution Pro Wrestling. But Will Ospreay suggested, after competing against them in singles matches, that they team together because they complement each other's development perfectly. And I believe they have done that. And I believe in their minds, they both wanted to be singles wrestlers the whole time. And they believe that the team has served its purpose, and they've got that experience level now. Each other has, they've helped one another sharpen perhaps the weaker points of their game to where they feel they're more complete performers than they were at the start. But the only way they can push forward in their respective careers is by focusing on themselves rather than having one eye on the singles division, one eye on the tag team division. So we're going to see if this renewed focus will help. But like you say, it was an amicable split between GALE and Newman. So I'm sure they're still talking to one another, still training with one another, etc. But it's going to be a huge night for JJ GALE on a huge test, especially because he's going up against ruthless Will Caven, who he's been a disruptor here in Revolution Pro Wrestling, shooting on to the scene towards the close of 2022, picking up big wins over the likes of Mike Loku, Luke Jacobs, Robbie X. You know, when many people gave him no chance whatsoever, and he has got that ruthless style, that in-your-face style. He's going to push the pace of the contest, you know, and when you try to breathe, he's going to dig an elbow into your side. You know, he turns pinning attempts into offensive maneuvers, rubbing the forearm against the face. He makes it uncomfortable to be in the ring with him. And that's why he's so dangerous. And that's why this match with JJ GALE may not be the ideal first contest for him since becoming a singles wrestler. You know, JJ GALE does know a lot about Will Caven because they did come through the Portsmouth School of Wrestling together. Will Caven had an opportunity to become a contender around the same time that JJ GALE was a contender or just graduating from the contenders division. But Will Caven said, no, I'm going to be my own man. And look, he bet on himself, and it's a gamble which paid off. But Will Caven's going to want to pick up a win here as well, though, because, you know, last time we saw him, he lost that 2 out of 3 falls match to Robbie X at Seasons Beatings. And it's time for him, in his mind, I guess, to rebound, dust himself off, pick himself up, and kind of start to build some more of that momentum, because he, more than anyone, showed last year what momentum can do for a professional wrestler, breeding confidence, and that in turn breeds results.
Absolutely. We saw that take him to new heights in his career, and I don't think he's ever going to look back. And speaking of new heights, Robbie X is someone who has said, Michael, you want to set the record for most defenses? I'm going to try and beat it. He's been doing well so far, but this Sunday we have a clash of champions. So the Cruiserweight Championship is not on the line, but we do have a clash of the champions in RevPro as undisputed Cruiserweight champion Robbie X is taking on one half of the undisputed British Tag Team Champions, made of stone, Danny Jones.
Yeah, I think this is going to be an excellent contest. Styles make matches. And, you know, it's the old-fashioned case of speed versus power. You know, which one's going to come out on top? You know, someone like Danny Jones would tell you that a good big man beats a great little man any day of the week. There's no denying that Robbie X is a great little man. But, you know, I think that Danny Jones is a great big man as well, not just a good big man. I think Danny Jones is one of the very best and perhaps the most underrated big men plying his trade right now. And it's crazy saying that because he's one half of the undisputed British Tag Team Champions. But I guess that means he doesn't get the plaudits he deserves as a singles wrestler. But look, until recently, he never really got the plaudits he deserved as a tag team wrestler either. Like, Danny Jones is a very real deal, and he's going to be looking to make an example out of Robbie X. You know, Danny Jones knows that Robbie X's name comes with a lot of weight behind it, and he knows a big victory over Robbie X will make people start to take notice of him as not just a tag team wrestler, but also a singles competitor. He's going to be swinging for the fences here in this one. You've got to think, look, if Robbie X can get a win in this contest, then perhaps Robbie X might be thinking, maybe, just maybe, I can follow the leads of a Michael Oku and being a history maker. You know, Michael Oku held that Cruiserweight Championship and Tag Team Championship at the same time. Could Robbie X find himself a tag team partner and challenge for those tag team championships of the Greedy Souls? You know, I think that's, I'm sure it's not the top priority on Robbie X's list, but he's said it before. He fights for legacy. And I think that it's interesting because what we're seeing, you've got a very young roster in Revolution Pro Wrestling, and Robbie X is a young man, you know, still in his 20s, but he's been doing it for a very long time. But I feel that now more than ever, wrestlers are fighting for legacy. They want to leave something behind. They want their names to be in their history books. They want people to look back at their matches as historic occurrings. And I think that Robbie X, you know, I think that the challenge of being a dual champion like Michael Oku would be an attractive prospect for him. So that's going to be going on in the background. So yeah, I mean, it's again, it's a pick 'em fight. Do you back the speed of Robbie X or do you back the power of Danny Jones? You know, that's do you have a preference? I don't know. I just I think it's impossible to pick, and we'll see, you know, in this battle of styles what wins out on the night.
That's a great point you bring up about wrestlers these days fighting for legacy and about making history. And I don't think there's anyone that's made more history, not just in Revolution Pro Wrestling, but I think wrestling these days, as Will Ospreay, who is making his return to Southampton. That is a real treat for the Southampton crowd. Now, we saw that open challenge he put out on social media. We see these a lot of the time from many wrestlers, but this is one of those rare ones that was real. It was genuine. He said, put a promo out. I will watch it. Everyone at Revolution Pro Wrestling watched every one of these promos. And Will has said, Leighton Buzzard, you're up. So this is a very interesting matchup.
Yeah, and look, any chance you get to see Will Ospreay perform is a chance that you should not take for granted, and it's something that you should absolutely go out your way to do. You know, we're talking about the best wrestler in the world right now, and
undeniable.
He's special, and watching him compete live, it's a special occasion. But you know, look, Will Ospreay said it himself. You know, look, he's a legacy wrestler as well, and he's held all the major gold which he's gone for in his professional wrestling career. But right now, he says he's not focusing on the undisputed British Heavyweight Championship, which of course he lost to RKJ because it's held by the Great O'Khan. It's in the camp of the United Empire. So what can he do? Again, about that legacy thing, you know, he wants to put a spotlight on wrestlers from this country. He wants to give people the opportunity to step up and see if they've got what it takes against the best wrestler in the world. And look, some people might call that arrogance, and you're well within your rights to say that. And there perhaps is a degree of arrogance to it, but you can't deny the confidence and the ability to back it up, you know. And he's not afraid of any challenge, and it's a complete open book. He said to me, look, if you see someone you want me to compete against, I'll compete against them, you know. And Leighton Buzzard, look, we've seen a degree of different people putting their names in the hat to compete for you know, for the opportunity to compete against Will Ospreay, and you know, varying levels of effort and what should we say, self-awareness, have gone into these videos. But look, Leighton Buzzard is a real deal. ICW World Heavyweight Champion. You know, he can talk, there's no doubt about it, but he can also back it up. He's stylistically, you know, he's good in a number of different styles, right? Like Will Ospreay. And I think that in Leighton Buzzard's mind, he can match Will Ospreay for speed. I think that he believes he can outthink Will Ospreay in a professional wrestling ring, which it's going to be an interesting contest in that respect, because, you know, look, I think a lot of people are, when we talk about Will Ospreay, they perhaps think that, and again, maybe he gives some reasons to, they think, you know, he's not the smartest guy competing, but when it comes to his wrestling IQ, I don't think there's anyone smarter than him, you know. And I think that there's a big difference when we're talking about, you know, street smarts, I guess, and wrestling IQ. And when it comes to wrestling IQ, he is what he says he is all the time. He's on another level. And I think it's going to be hard for Leighton Buzzard, because look, again, and maybe it's a situation that Will Ospreay's manufactured deliberately to get the best out of his opponents and to give his opponents that experience of a big stage, because Leighton Buzzard knows more people will watch this professional wrestling match than probably any professional wrestling match he's had. And he knows that if he has a good showing here, then wrestling fans around the world are going to see and talk about this professional wrestling contest, and more specifically about Leighton Buzzard. If he shows up and gives us everything that we know he's capable of doing, and if he's able to handle the pressure, the environment, and again, look, we can talk all we want. We can talk about big arenas. Look, Southampton, the 1865, is a small building, but that brings about more pressure, because you're literally, the fans are on top of the action. It's an intimate environment. You can hear everything everyone's saying. You know, there's a real electric atmosphere in the air, and you know, it's going to be tough for Leighton Buzzard. So if he's able to rise to the occasion here, he's going to show us what he's all about. He's going to show us his worth. He's going to show us that he belongs with us in Revolution Pro Wrestling. But these are all if, buts, and maybes. There's no return date announced or booked for Leighton Buzzard. It all depends on how this contest against Will Ospreay goes this Sunday. So, you know, the stakes don't get much higher than that. And Will, you know, he's used to being in that high pressure situation, that high pressure environment. He's not going to want someone to make a look, as much as he wants to try and raise the level of competition, he's not going to want someone to make a name off of his back either. And I feel that Will almost feels disrespected in the fact that someone like Leighton Buzzard wants to call him out. You know, it's one thing laying out that challenge, but then seeing people accept that challenge and call you out, call your bluff, so to speak, and say, yeah, I can hang with you, I can beat you. That's going to piss Will Ospreay off, and he's going to want to prove a point. And he wants to prove that point every single time he wrestles. Doesn't matter if it's in the small venues or the large arenas. Will Ospreay's out to steal the show. And like I say, it's going to be a hell of a show when he goes one-on-one with Leighton Buzzard.
I really don't think there's any way anyone can look at the card for this Sunday and not get excited. Make sure you're there in person to see the action. Tickets, as always, from revolutionprowrestling.com. And if you can't be there with us in person, RevProOnDemand.com is the place to be, our subscription service. And we're now live streaming the shows as well. So there really is no excuse to miss this Sunday Southampton show. Andy, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you. I can't wait. And I hope to see as many people as possible there on Sunday, and get subscribing to RevProOnDemand.com, and make sure you check out some of the stuff we've got coming up. Next week, we're in Birmingham and Cardiff, and then coming up, Stevenage, Sheffield, and of course, back to the 229 in London, all leading up, all roads lead to Revolution Rumble in York Hall, Bethnal Green on March 26th. So it's just an exciting time to be around and a part of Revolution Pro Wrestling. So hope as many of you as possible can make it down, and be a part of these memories which we're creating, because I called it at the top, I'm calling it again now. These are the days that we're going to be looking back on and saying how lucky we had it.